Hey y'all, this is Cyber Sam with Let's Teach Tech. Sitting here on the beach. Many of you are probably horribly familiar with this background. With our year of COVID and remote teaching, this was my default background for way too many sessions with my students, both in higher ed and students in my high school. So let's get into setting goals today. Also with setting goals, I'm going to be talking about how I'm going to prioritize my time for professional development in my prep time, getting set up for the year, and making sure I'm really laser focused on what is really important versus the little things that we get bogged down with that just drain our time and energy, but they're really not the essential things that impact students. That's what I'll be sharing with you today in Let's Talk Tech. That's what I'll be sharing with you today in Let's Teach Tech. So I'm sitting here, just like many of you, trying to figure out how to prioritize my time in professional development and at the beginning of the school year. And I decided to take what I learned were building goals and make my own personal goals based off of that. So I want to share that with you, and based on this, I'm going to try to set up priorities for my time. So first thing I want to make sure you're aware of is what are called SMART goals, which are building used and I'm using right now. So they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. I stole this graphic from the internet to give you an idea of what this is. So specific goals are realistic. We don't want to use general terms. Measurable goes along with that. We want to have something that you can actually ideally be trackable and be a number of sorts. Attainable and realistic are similar. So can you do this? This example says, are you trying to change the world in one night? That's a problem I have. My goals are a little bit of a stretch, but that's okay. And realistic, don't forget about hurdles that you have to overcome. I've kind of listed my hurdles, so I've kind of kept that in mind. And then time bound, we want to make sure we have a date and not just a someday. So based on the building goals, and I'm sitting here on the beach, and I don't know if you're going to see this, but in a previous video, or we've talked before about this pyramid picture, which was the building goals, the SMART building goals, the 5-year strategic plan our building is used. So I thought about, like, what can I do to have the most impact on students? And that always goes back to teacher efficacy. If you've never heard this before, that is the number one way we can improve student outcomes is teacher efficacy. So my first 3 goals are straight up for students. So the first one is I will have at least 2 formative assessment questions with multiple choice answers in every lesson containing new information. I've read a great book, I'll probably have another video on this, about formative assessment, and I teach a course online for this. And this is probably the easiest, best way, according to the book I read, for getting student feedback during the lesson to make informed instruction on if and how you should move forward in a lesson. So I want to impact students during the lesson, and 2 multiple choice questions is the fastest way and potentially the easiest way of getting that feedback you need as an instructor for making sure your students actually are getting the information you want them to learn. So that is my first goal. Second one is I will have social emotional learning in every, I should probably type that out because not all of us are familiar with these terms. Social emotional learning in every lesson. And I say that, and I'm making this goal, but I have a lot to learn about this topic. We're gonna, as part of our goals for our building, to have PD on this, but I have some ideas. I know I do it already in my classroom, but I want to be more clear on what that entails and make that a part of my teaching. And again, that's directly affects students. It directly affects if they're even absorbing anything and engaged in anything we're teaching. So I think it's a really, really important goal. And it's a big push in my district. Number 3 is I will create at least 2 opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning for each learning target. This goes into SRG grading, standard reference grading. This is not happening if you're a higher ed teacher. This is not something you are dealing with now, but I almost guarantee that you're going to be dealing with it coming up in the next few years. So I will have more information about that in a future video, but definitely K-12 is deep into standard reference grading. Not all districts, so some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. Another video will get into the weeds of that. I'm starting my 3rd or 4th year using SRG, and it's a heavy lift to get there, but it's really worth it in the end. Part of that is giving students multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning. I don't think I'm really doing that in the way that's probably best for students right now. I want to clearly make sure that I'm making that a part of my practice. This one is a very big challenge for me, so I'm going to reach out to my instructional coaches for big help on that one. And then finally, we're doing a big push to formalize our curriculum. So we have a template that we're going to be filling out, and we have to have, let's see, I'm looking at our building goals here. We're going to have our curriculum approved by the Regional Planning Partnership. And I don't know what that is right now, but I figure probably the easiest thing I could do, because it's not going to be required of me this year, is to figure out what this template is and fill it out as I am prepping for lessons and prepping for units of instruction. Maybe I can just pull that sheet up and try to fill it out as I go throughout the year. That way it's done and I'm doing it as I go. That's my goal. A part of my process here is I got questions because I don't know what resources the district provides on social emotional learning. I'd love to have a pool of lessons or ideas that I can grab from. I can search the internet, but our district actually does a pretty good job of having a web page or something. I just did a quick search and I couldn't find it right away, so I'm going to reach out to some people for help probably during PD in the next few days. I don't know if we even have a curriculum template to fill out at the moment, so I'm hoping that exists and I can fill that out. And then I have rough ideas on how I could give 2 opportunities to demonstrate learning, but I don't know. I'm hoping my instructional coaches can give me a different mindset on how to approach this idea of multiple opportunities to learn, demonstrate learning, but right now it seems a bit daunting when I think about it. Our district also does an IPI-DIPI, I think it's what it's called, individual learning plan, something. So these goals, I'll put one or more than one of these in my formalized goal for one of the requirements for a district. But I wanted to share this with you, and now having these goals is going to help me steer, just like having the building strategic plan that may or may not show up on the screen here. Having that strategic plan is pointing all of us as teachers in the direction we want to go. Now I know as a practitioner, what I want to do, and looking at these 4 goals, I'm really going to probably spend my time prepping, really, honestly. I want to get in a groove during my prep time of checking these two off the list and washing, rinsing, recycling. Um, how did things go well? Updating the questions after the lesson is over and going, that one went well, that didn't go well, I could have reworded things, and so on. Trying to do things more on the fly, kind of doing things in a scrummage kind of fashion where we're iterating constantly. That's what I want to be doing in my classroom. These two, I'm going to have to just reach out to people. These are a little more daunting for me, but these two I think will have the biggest impact on students. This one, number 3, is going to have the potentially one of the biggest impacts on grading. So if my students have multiple opportunities to show they've got the information, they're going to get a higher grade likely overall. So that's why I was about to throw that one out of the mix, but that's in the end going to be a better choice for me to help students in them showing their learning. So those are my goals for the year. That's now going to help me in prioritizing my time as a practitioner. I wanted to share one more idea with you, which is that once I've got these general goals for myself, I can give myself daily goals. So what I end up doing personally, I don't do in Google Docs like I'm in right now, but I will have a separate document and I give myself no more than 3 things to do for the day. Now, I'm not going to lie, I don't follow this strictly, and I'm human, so I screw things up. But what I do is I keep a separate document that I have like a week to do, or I have a list of things in my home life or personal life and my work, and I kind of jot down all these different ideas here. I could organize them by week or whatever, and I get my lists because I'm a list person. I get all my lists taken care of, but I keep that separate. And then what I flush out now is, what am I doing today? Ideally, what is the 3 things that will have the most impact on my day? So with my current goals, I'd like to get these 2 things into just kind of a routine for myself. To me, this is kind of basic teaching stuff, creating lesson plans, but I still got a lot of work to do with this. And I think in higher education, in these technical jobs, we don't always think this way. But we kind of come with our, maybe pre-created PowerPoints and so on, and just teach off of those. This is a different way of thinking. So for me, I can at least make my first 2 priorities for the day. In my case, create those 2 formative assessment questions based on this new information, and make sure I'm using social emotional learning in my lesson plan. And then maybe it's putting in like order curriculum. That's one thing I have to do in the next couple days, is get my online curriculum ordered. So these are now, if I just get those 3 things done, I consider this a success. You could even go down and just say, if I just get this one thing done, this will be a successful day. Having huge lists, I'm guilty of this, just are daunting, and you end up getting bogged down with all those details. Highly recommend you write this down on paper and keep it on your desk, or just have a separate document that you only look at your 1 to 3 things instead of all of the things. Thanks for watching. This is Cyber Sam with Let's Teach Tech. We'll see you next time.